Well, one of the things that's come out of the Occupy movement is increased attention and information on the use of force by police departments around the country. There have been a slew of incidents involving Occupy activists and really activists in general, given harsh treatment by police, sprayed with pepper spray from just inches away, also violently beaten for peacefully protesting. Now, there has also been a growing trend of police targeting anarchists and putting them in jail. 3 people in the Pacific Northwest were subpoenaed to testify before a grand jury following FBI and Joint Terrorism Task Force raids. They were arrested for civil contempt. They are Catherine Cadio-Olajink from Olympia, Washington, Matthew Duran, also from Olympia, and most recently it was Leah Lynn Plant from Seattle. Here she is making a video statement that's been posted online.
FBI agents from around Washington and Oregon and Joint Terrorism Task Force agents from Washington busted down the front door of my house with a battering ram, handcuffed my housemates and me at gunpoint, and held us hostage in our backyard while they read us the search warrant and ransacked our home. They said it was in connection to May Day vandalism that occurred in Seattle, Washington earlier this year. However, we suspected that this was not really about broken windows. As if they had taken pointers from Orwell's 1984, they took books, artwork, and other various literature as evidence, as well as many other personal belongings, even though they seemed to know that nobody there was even in Seattle on May Day.
Well, we want to talk more about this, so joining me now is RT Web producer Andrew Blake. He's been covering this for quite a long time. Obviously, these raids happened back in July, and the 3 people who were arrested because they refused to testify before a grand jury. They gave, I think, their names, and that was it.
Birth dates, and that was it. And I mean, that's all they really have to. And but on that note, the federal authorities can hold you if you refuse to comply with a grand jury investigation. They can leave you locked up until that investigation is over and done with.
So we heard from Leah right there in the video, and she says she feels like this wasn't about a bunch of broken windows, and that the authorities seem to even know that she wasn't at the May Day protest.
She was. Her house was raided, I believe, at least on July 25th. That's when the Joint Terrorism Task Force came in, the FBI, several coordinated raids across the Pacific Northwest. And Leah said they came in, they looked for anarchist literature, they looked for flags, black clothing, which I guess would make me an anarchist right now. But at the time, the search warrant said that they were being investigated, in part at least, for these May 1st protests in Seattle. And yeah, exactly. She said, you know, we weren't even there. And since then, she has filed a Freedom of Information Act request to find out that that grand jury actually first convened months earlier, before these May Day protests even happened. So these people have reason to believe that this is more than just an investigation into these acts of violence, but it's actually an investigation into ideology.
Yeah, the search warrant also, I think, said that it identified anti-government or anarchist literature. So talk a little bit about, I mean, what does this mean?
It means that if you own a book, you can have the cops bust down your door and hold you at gunpoint and take all of your possessions, which I thought was actually really funny because I was working on this story last week when we first broke it. And in addition to wearing black and, you know, I guess I'm a terrorist, I actually had a copy of everything you wanted to know about anarchism on my desk.
Show it to the cameras. This was on Andrew's desk, but let's see what else. I know you had some other things on your desk as well.
I have this over 150 great pizza jokes, and here's my complete book of zingers. Okay. So between the 3 of these, I guess I could be an anarchist. I'm not, but that's really all it takes. If the FBI is going to say, well, we're looking for literature, and we're going to look for computers, and we're going to look for your black clothing, and we're going to look for flag-making material. Yeah, and this is what they did. They came in, they filed the search warrants, detained everyone, waited a few months, and these grand jury, it began, and Leah was the 3rd person who said, I'm not going to testify. I'm not going to go up there and be quizzed about my own personal beliefs. I'm not going to talk about my friends' personal beliefs, and I'm going to remain silent because I think this is a politically motivated witch hunt that's being used to chill self-described anarchists.
You know, it's interesting to me. I know you're not a legal scholar, Andrew, but why can't the 5th Amendment protections be used in the case of a grand jury?
Well, the whole purpose of a grand jury, of course, is, you know, to bring in a larger panel, maybe up to 26 people, I believe, to come in and hear a federal prosecutor, district attorney, go ahead and present evidence, quiz people, and try to get enough information to actually file a federal indictment against someone. So in cases like this, they really can't go ahead and, you know, get the wheels moving to file that indictment if they don't have the evidence. So if someone refuses to testify, they are actually legally allowed to hold them for, in this case, it could be up to 18 months in an attempt to kind of coax them into coming out and agreeing to testify, which they don't have to do. Leah and her two colleagues can actually remain in prison for the next 18 months if they choose to remain silent, and it looks like they all do. They're all writing letters from prison. They seem relatively content given the circumstances.
And I was reading that Matthew Duran, I don't know about the other two, but Matthew Duran was actually put in solitary for a little while?
Yeah, he was put in solitary confinement. I couldn't find the exact reasoning for that, but so Matthew was raided, forced to go speak before a federal commission about his personal beliefs, and then when he told them he wouldn't, they locked him up and put him in a tiny room for days upon days.
And we should mention that what happened in the Pacific Northwest is part of sort of a growing trend. We showed this Occupy sort of anniversary story. And I remember I interviewed a guy whose house was raided, Philip Neal. His house was raided after Occupy Seattle. I just want to play a little bit of what he had to say.
Basically, I woke up to the sound of the flashbang going off, the door crashing open. We had just enough time to jump out of bed, get a little bit of clothing on, and put our hands behind our heads. And then the SWAT team came in with their automatic guns drawn, had them pointed at our backs for a good period of time while they searched the house. Clearly, disconcerting way to wake up in the morning.
So we've got anarchists, we've got Occupy activists being raided. What's, sort of the takeaway here?
That you're not safe in your own beliefs or your own actions or even your own possessions, whether it's anarchist literature or a book of pizza jokes. And we saw the same thing last year. There was a secret grand jury was convened to investigate WikiLeaks, and David House, a member of the Bradley Manning Support Network, was testified to go, or rather subpoenaed to go before them. And he did the same thing that Leah and her two cohorts did. He gave his name, he gave his birth date, and nothing else. And now, in Leah's case, she was asked to testify twice more, and both times she refused. So it's just happening across the country for anyone who is exercising, or at least being accused of exercising, any sort of belief that does not sit well with the federal government. It would appear, whether you're an occupier, an anarchist, or just interested in free information. It's really unfortunate, but it's happening, and thankfully we can at least come on air and talk about it so more people are aware.
Yeah, because a whole lot of people just really are not discussing this. Appreciate your time. I know you've been kind of covering this for months now. RT Web producer Andrew Blake, thanks so much.
Sure.